Blood Brothers podcast, a Five Pillars of Mad Monolith production.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, dear brothers, sisters, friends, and even foes, and welcome to today's episode of the Blood Brothers podcast with your brother Dilly Hussain and my co-host
Aki Hussain. Assalamu alaikum.
And today we have a very special guest, Shaykh Mohammed Osman, the CEO of S.A.L.A.M Initiative. Assalamu alaikum, Shaykh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. It's a pleasure to be here.
Jazakumullah khair for blessing us with your presence.
May Allah reward you for inviting me.
Ameen ya Rab. How was your journey to Bedford?
It was interesting. I started to go to Luton first. I thought Bedford was in Luton.
Oh God. Close enough. Oh God, that conflation. We need to overcome this conflation of Bedford and Luton.
With Bedfordshire.
Yeah.
So I did a U-turn.
Yes.
Well, more like a right turn, sharp right. Went straight.
But you got here, alhamdulillah.
I got here,
here,
safe and
here.
sound, alhamdulillah.
And how are things at S.A.L.A.M Institute?
S.A.L.A.M Initiative.
S.A.L.A.M Initiative, sorry.
If you're talking about S.A.L.A.M Institute, you're probably referring to S.A.L.A.M Plus, which is our new... Let me just plug it in quickly.
Quick plug.
Yeah, it's our new online bespoke learning environment, completely free, salamplus.org.
There it is on the screen. It will be on the screen. Inshallah.
Alhamdulillah.
So how are things up in S.A.L.A.M?
S.A.L.A.M is great, bro. Alhamdulillah. S.A.L.A.M, you know, for me, akhi, S.A.L.A.M is a breath of fresh air, bro. I mean, honestly, I do believe that the da'wah is changing.
Yeah.
I believe how we go about da'wah is changing. Obviously, we all know social media is the thing now, and it was for a few years, and it will be for the conceivable future until something else pops along. So getting involved in social media, getting involved with the brothers who are, you know, more than just typical YouTubers, but actually have a lot of substance behind them and have, you know, a lot of, I wouldn't say clout, but I would say progression, and they have a lot of diversity, and they actually have, you know, head on their shoulders when it comes to the da'wah. Ali Da'wah, Muhammad Hijab, and Ali Da'wah is more controversial than Muhammad Hijab.
We'll get to that. We'll get to that towards the end of the podcast. That excites us very much. We want to conclude on these issues. But a bit of a side issue.
Yeah.
You're so young and handsome, mashallah.
I'm not as young and handsome as
No. When you rocked up at...
This is the thing about Blood Brothers podcast. One of the criteria is they have to have the looks. Alhamdulillah, you're the first sheikh that we've
Mashallah,
had on.
tabarakallah.
Because you've set the standard.
You've
very
set a
high.
particular standard, right? May Allah preserve not only your looks, but all the blessing that you bring the deen of the Let me...
I'm miskeen, guys. I'm very miskeen.
Sheikh, let me kick off today's podcast by asking you, at what point in your life did you decide that you wanted to pursue knowledge and scholarship?
Allahu Akbar. Wow.
And why?
You know what? That's a very deep question.
First of all, Sheikh, if you don't mind me asking, how old are you?
I am 31 now.
Oh
31.
my...
Wow.
Yeah.
So, same age as my brother.
Even this title, Sheikh, I don't like it. Wallahi, I don't like this title, Sheikh. Just call me brother. Call me even Ustad. Whatever you want to call me. But this title, Sheikh, is a very, very big title. It's a very lofty title. But you know what I mean? Me seeking knowledge is a long one, akhi.
Yalla, give us an insight.
But it must be a story.
It's an insight.
Well, I mean, you have to go back to me finishing college, yeah? So I finished college, about 18 years old, and I took a gap year, and I went to Egypt. Now, at the time, Egypt was the place to go for Arabic. I'm not sure if Dilly, you guys were around at that, like, within the kind of movement, the circle at that time.
Yes, of course. It was...
You were familiar that was where people gravitated to.
People went to Egypt, bro.
It was a thing, yes, of course.
So I went to Egypt. I thought, okay, you know, let me go to Egypt. And you know, when I went to Egypt, it wasn't to become a talib ilm, a student of knowledge. Wallahi, brother, it was literally because I remember in Tarawih, in Ramadan, and we're in Ramadan now. Yeah, I remember in Tarawih, I would be in Salah, and people to the right of me and to the left of me would literally be crying, hearing the Quran, the Kalamullah. And I can honestly say, maybe a few times, but I remember standing there thinking, I don't even understand what's happening.
SubhanAllah.
Wallahi, I don't understand what Allah Jalla wa Ala is saying to me.
Yeah.
I want to cry. My heart wants to cry, but I don't understand it. And I felt not ashamed, but I felt like I could do better.
Yeah.
I could do better. Allah Jalla wa Ala has given me a faculty of thinking. He's given me an aql, intellect. Let me go and study. Let me go and understand the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So I went to Arabic for that purpose.
So it wasn't just to broaden your vocab beyond akhi and na'am and tab'an and sah. Yeah.
Wallah, I did not have sah.
Okay.
I swear, guys. Wallah, I mean, look, guys, you have to understand. For me, I taught myself how to read the Quran.
SubhanAllah.
I taught myself how to. I remember when I was 16 years old, I was in a halaqah with my friends in the masjid, and I was not raised un-Islamically, but my parents simply didn't put focus on this. Yeah. They put focus on my academia. I was a straight A student, straight A-star student. Alhamdulillah, I was excelling in all my studies. But when it came to the Islamic side of things, I was very I was weak.
Didn't your parents outsource it to masajid, which is very common in the Desi community?
I think what it is, I went a few times, but I didn't like it.
No.
And I think once my dad came and he saw how the students were behaving, the children were behaving, he was like, I'm not sending you there again.
No.
So you never had to do this thing called the murgi?
No.
What's the murgi?
Murgi is where you have to put... Go on.
So if you say, I can't do it now, not in this,
Also, you
not in
can't
this
do it.
right age. Yeah. Murgi is like a punishment that the imam would make you do if you misbehave. So if you are not
It's good
reciting
tarbiyah.
Quran, or if you're talking too much,
No.
they get you to squat, arms under your knees like that.
Allah.
And then you have to try and get to
What
your
is
earlobes.
this?
Yeah, but kids are very flexible, mashallah. They can do it. Long time.
This is, Akhi, Imam Malik, rahimahullah ta'ala, he would dislike for a child to be forced to learn the Quran and for him to be like pushed to learn it, because he said this will create a dislike for the Quran in his heart.
That's true.
Murgi, by the way, means chicken.
So you make the position of the chicken.
Chicken.
La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. I mean, how many people
This is
grew
the
up?
memory they live with,
And yeah, I mean, what's your relation with the Quran now? When you think of the Quran, you probably hate it, to be honest with you. I know for at least one person that became an apostate, bro, because of how it's treated in madrasa.
But there's a level of reverence and fear of the Quran and
Yes.
giving it such a high maqam and station in your life as a result of that discipline.
So it stays at the top of the shelf.
No. Hopefully not
collects
piling
the
dust
dust,
into them. Right, so
there was no dust in it.
Yeah, so I went to Egypt. I learned a bit of Arabic. I stayed for about 8 to 10 months. Alhamdulillah, it was very beneficial, mashallah, tabarakallah. Then I came back, and with a bit of Arabic, I thought, okay, let me try and read some of the Islamic books. This was the time when kind of Medina University students were all around, and it was, mashallah, I mean, knowledge was quite live at the time, So I thought, let me try and read a few books. I couldn't read anything, To be honest, I couldn't understand anything. I was still quite weak in my Arabic. And then, that time, so now we're going, beginning of 2008, end of 2007, yeah, roughly at that time, yeah. That was a time when, the Muslim Ummah was going through a lot.
of course.
Yeah, there was a lot of oppression, there was a lot of injustices, there was a lot of, scenes on the news, and, whether it's Afghanistan or wherever the case may be. And, with me, akhi, coupled with my youth, and my kind of emotional unintelligence, or lack of emotional intelligence, for want of a better word, and my personality, which was that I'm a person, akhi, if I see any type of injustice, wallahi, I don't care if you're Muslim or non-Muslim, it doesn't make a difference to me. I will stand with you.
Is that necessarily a bad trait though, Sheikh?
No, I believe it's, inshallah, I hope it's a good trait.
It's something that we know that Musa alayhi salam had this trait. We know that Umar ibn Khattab radiyallahu anhu
The Anbiya alayhi salam,
they had this trait.
I mean, even my wife, she hates driving with me. Because if I see something happen on the side of the road, straight away I pull the car up and I run outside. That's just my nature, right? I actually can't think at the time.
That's wicked.
Yeah, Allah, I'm not praising, but
be careful though in the car.
It's bad sometimes, guys. Yeah, it's bad, especially if you're with your kids and you leave them alone in the car. But anyways,
I'm never jumping a lift with you. Okay, you'll just long the journey.
Traveling the underground with the stud here.
Yeah, wait.
Oh gosh,
I just saw something in that carriage.
Yeah, it's a bit of a nightmare, bro.
So go on. So
So that was happening, and I felt, subhanAllah, to be honest with you, I felt a sense of sadness seeing those scenes. I felt like these Muslims were helpless. I felt like they were voiceless. I felt like no one cared about them. I felt as if they didn't, no one cared about what was happening to them.
The Muslim world generally, or a specific country caught your attention?
It was a Muslim world generally.
Okay.
Yeah, but specifically it was Afghanistan. Okay, specifically Afghanistan, a bit of Iraq as well. The kind of hotbeds for what was happening in the news at the time, right? So that sadness of mine, it slowly started to turn to anger. All right, it started to turn to anger. It started to feel as if, there's something else I could be doing, okay, rather than sitting here. And it's important that I mention that because there was no one talking about this, guys, at the time. There wasn't our du'at and silence, bro.
Wait, the UK?
At that time, yeah. The people in my kind of circle that I was, it's not probably worth to mention names, but it was the mainstream kind of guys. It's absolute silence.
No discussion whatsoever.
I mean, people were kind of scared to talk about that. And that's only been, by the way, off topic, it's been kind of exasperated and intensified and amplified with the advent of Prevent.
Yeah,
because now, there wasn't a safe space for my day and age, 2007, 2008. Now there's definitely no safe space. I mean, your doctor, for crying out, your teacher, they have an obligation to report you.
And keep in mind, pre 9/11, we knew that fundraising for the Jihad in Bosnia and fighting the Russians in Afghanistan was very open and actually allowed and supported in the UK. And everything changed after 9/11 and the dawn of the war on terror. So you were getting angry. Absolutely, and I feel that you're going to perhaps disclose something.
Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, 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 dun.
So I mean, so that leading on from that kind of sentiment that I was feeling, it then I started to look for like a safe space, bro. I'll be honest with you. I started to look for a safe space. Who can I speak about this issue? Who can I confide in what I'm feeling, what I physically, for example, think needs to be done? Yeah. And I turned to the internet. In all honesty, I turned to the internet. I found loads of books, sort of PDFs, forums, these websites that probably are not there anymore. And even these books written, Allahu Alam, how long ago by these unknown writers, and whatever the case may be. But the language that I found, the very jihadi language,
resonated with you.
Well, 100% it resonated with me, because that was what I was feeling with at the time. And I didn't have anyone I can consult and go back to. So then I made the decision that the only way this ummah will be rectified was jihad. And
Fighting.
Yeah.
Was fight, yes, and specifically fighting.
What, invaders and the regimes? Foreign invaders and the regimes?
So for me...
Or weren't you that nuanced back then?
No, I was not.
It doesn't seem like I was in a nuanced attitude at that moment. Yahoo, Google, if Bing was about, we'd be on Bing as well.
Yeah, it wasn't about. But, so I thought, I'm going to go to Afghanistan. And, at the time, obviously, when you have this like-minded thing, you start meeting like-minded people.
Yep.
One thing led to another. Arrangements were made. Everything was laid out for me. And I made the decision to go to Afghanistan, to join the Taliban and fight against the coalition forces.
So you were essentially, as a British citizen, fighting with the Taliban against the British Armed Forces.
The coalition.
Which included British Armed Forces. Which is a criminal offence. So what happened and how long did that last?
So I left the country, I went to Turkey.
Okay.
It didn't pass beyond Turkey.
Oh, God. Okay.
It didn't pass beyond Turkey. Allahu Alam what happened. Apparently people got wind of things, and I think we were going to cross over to Tajikistan. From Tajikistan, go to the Hindu Kush Mountains, cross over. whatever. It's a tried and tested route at the time. Yeah. We got wind that people were aware, whatever. So we made the decision, or I made the decision to come back, and knowing that I'd be arrested, and so I came back. And lo and behold, I remember, subhanAllah, I was in the plane, the plane, and they had a camera at the nose of the plane, so you can see directly in front of the thing. And I remember as it was landing, I saw this gleaming silver police van. In fact, I think there were 2 or 3 of them. And I thought, wow, this is it.
So no red carpet and roses for you?
No.
No red carpet.
They weren't saying, do you know what, thank you, your intention was bad,
They
but you didn't do the deed. You get ajr for this, actually, thank you for coming back.
Bro, they were guns that I didn't see before. That boarded the plane, bro. Let's just keep it as that. Yeah, I've seen these things before. They took me off and went into the police car from their police station. And I remember when they appoint like a solicitor for you, and I remember at the time just thinking it was all a whirlwind, bro. My head was, wallahi, I can't even begin to explain how I was feeling at the time. But the moment the solicitor said to me, they are going to charge you under Section 5, which is an intent to commit an act of terrorism.
Yes.
An intent to commit an act of terrorism, and you potentially face a life in prison. Wallahi, this fantasy bubble that I built around myself, it burst. And subhanAllah, was it a dramatic pop? It was dramatic. And the sadness I put my family through, my parents, the hardship they face. I remember I managed to make a phone call to my mum. She couldn't even talk to me properly. She couldn't even talk. The amount of crying that she went through, she was doing it. But of course, you don't think of this stuff. When you're in this state of mind, guys, wallahi, you don't think of this stuff. You think only of Allah Jalla wa'ala. You think only of what I'm going to do. And you think this is the right thing, and that's it. And, so sadness, the hardship that they went through. And then, prison, obviously I went straight into custody. That was in
remand.
I was in remand.
Yeah.
That was a time of reflection for me.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, I don't want to sound cliched, but when you're in a cell and there's nothing there, you do have time to think and contemplate.
It's just you and your thoughts in a cell.
That's it. Which is why a lot of people actually, a lot of people make tawbah. A lot of people turn back to Allah, make repentance. A lot of people accept Islam in prison. And I saw that with my own eyes. People accepting Islam left, right, and center. You're probably thinking about these kind of like Muslim prisons and stuff like
that. But I was also thinking there's even some prominent cases where certain individuals came out of prison worse and more angry. And more filled with, but that's in the Muslim world after torture and stuff.
I mean
that's different.
I mean, there's one prominent individual without mentioning their name. You know, usually known by a Duracell battery kind of initials kind of thing. When they spent some time in a Yemeni prison.
He
he came out.
You know, I can resonate with this to a certain extent. Not because of what I went through, but this particular example. You know, he changed. He flipped. I remember he was very moderate. But after prison...
Very mainstream.
But absolutely. After prison, he started adopting very shared opinions, very minority opinions, not valid. And it was quite radical, the kind of flip that happened there, yeah? So anyways, I was in prison. I was on remand for 3.5 months. I actually got bail, alhamdulillah. My dad put down about 10,000-20,000 pounds for me, may Allah bless him. And I came out, alhamdulillah. And that was a situation in and of itself. Wallahi, I did not understand what happened. I didn't understand the effect of what happened to me would have on everyone surrounded me.
Yeah.
I did not think of this, honestly. My parents, my mother, my father, my sister, my auntie and uncle. My auntie, I think, nearly lost her job because of this.
SubhanAllah.
You know, I mean, it was just...
You don't consider the wider impact.
You don't consider it at all. No. And I remember I came out and I got a phone call straight away, mashallah, by one brother. May Allah bless him, he was in Egypt at the time, he called me. And he was like, you know, a close friend of mine. You know, we used to go to his house to eat. May Allah reward him and his brother, him and his wife, they used to cook for us nearly every day. And he called me and he said, Muhammad, listen to me carefully. You studied Arabic, but you're not a scholar. You're not even a Taliban. You don't know, you can't make these decisions by yourself. Because what I did, you know, coupled with my emotions and stuff, bro, as I said, I read a few books, I read a few fatwas, which were written, 20, 30 years ago. And I said, you know what, this definitely applies to today. That's it. Afghanistan and the Soviet Union is the same now. And that was it for me. So what I did was qiyas upon qiyas. I took a fatwa from one time and I applied with qiyas on another time, which is, according to the majority of the usuliyun, if not all of them, it's completely haram. It's not valid. Obviously, I didn't know these nuances at the time, yeah. And so then I started to question myself. What do I actually know? You know, what is right?
Yeah.
What is right?
Before we go into this, so you did 3.5 months in remand.
Yeah.
Did you do a stretch after that?
So yeah, I came out for bail for 10 months, and this process of me thinking what is right, what is wrong, that's where my Talab al-Ilm started. Yeah. I actually...
So you started seeking knowledge whilst on bail?
Whilst on bail, I started Talab
al-Ilm. Why not? Strike while the iron's hot.
No, because alhamdulillah, I finished hifth of the Quran in remand.
Yeah.
Whilst I was in remand, I was nearly hafid. Alhamdulillah, I finished it. I used to do about 10 pages a day. I had nothing to do. Alhamdulillah. Outside, I couldn't even hit that, yeah. Even a tenth of that, one page was struggling, yeah.
Mad.
So I finished Quran, alhamdulillah. I came out, I thought, okay, let me start my talab. I had that phone call, it was real, someone I trusted, someone I knew, who knew me as well. And I started to do my talab al-ilm. I started to read a bit more, I started to go back to the basics, I started to build upon my Arabic. But obviously at the time, it was very, mashallah, there was one shaykh, very mainstream shaykh. I used to go to his lessons, alhamdulillah. And he helped me a lot. There's two actually who helped me a lot, mashallah, tabarakallah, very mainstream guys. They're very, very, very well known now, and they helped me a lot. They took me under their wing, and I started my talab. And from that, after that, I went back in for my sentence,
which was how long?
3.5 years, taking into consideration the time
done in remand.
On remand, alhamdulillah. Yeah. So I ended up in totality, I spent on that stretch was 1 year.
And which prison were you in, if you don't mind?
I was in all sorts of prisons.
We moved back a lot.
I was moved about all
in that 1 year period, yeah.
Yeah, even before
and
that.
Did you meet any brothers at the time who attempted similar journeys like yourself?
Oh yeah, I met all of them, man.
Yeah.
I met all of them.
Did they become as nuanced as you upon time?
Well, that would mean you're still in contact with them.
I mean
at that time.
While I was in prison.
When I was in prison.
While you in prison?
For example, one of the cases that I met, I'm sure we can talk about this, right? Of course. One of the cases was that, it was one of the first cases here. Yeah. It was the ammonium nitrate.
Yes.
And those guys, right? And I met all of them, believe it or not, in Wood Hill. I think they were doing their appeal or something at the time, bro. And let's just say, subhanAllah, may Allah Jalla guide us on them. And,
Ameen.
But prison is a place that you either go in, you make a change, or you come out worse, or what you're feeling is intensified. If you don't have anyone who can sit down with you, speak to you on a level, firstly, you have to have trust in that person. The truth is, there's no trust in many of the imams in the prison, okay? Even these brothers, some of them will not come to the masjid. There was a case of a man, I think from Birmingham, plotted to beheaded British soldier or something.
Yes,
like
yes,
that.
yes.
Yeah.
There's been a number of these cases, but that was a prominent one back in
Yes.
08, 09, I believe.
Exactly. So I met him, and you know, he refused to come to the masjid. He used to call it Masjid Dirar, and you know,
Oh dear.
it was a very a lot of hate, bro. There's a lot of hate. There was a lot of anger, and you know. I pray Allah Jalla wa Ala gives these brothers a source of nur, a source of light, and a source of.
I don't want to lighten this matter, right?
Yeah.
But have you watched the film Four Lions?
Yeah, I've seen it.
So are there some brothers who are
Save the impersonations.
No. So have you met? Actually, forget. Have you met? Did you feel like one of those guys from Four Lions?
I hope not the one who just blew himself up
With the rubber dinghy rapids. But what I'm saying, are those kind of behaviorisms actually real amongst some brothers?
I think that's what I was going to ask as well. I mean,
without a shadow of a doubt.
yeah, I mean, when
To
you,
a certain extent.
when you spent time with some of the brothers who
Yeah.
had similar intentions in their minds,
Yeah.
wanting to do the right thing, and you know, they believed they were doing it fi sabilillah, and they
Yeah.
thought that this was the correct thing to do to solve this problem.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, these brothers, they were yeah.
Were you able to see a clear distinction in your attitude and your emotions that brought you there
Yeah.
compared to brother X, Y, or Z?
To be honest, these brothers, majority of them, if not all of them, had very strong ideological justification according to them of exactly what they were doing.
So they were affiliated to a particular group or a movement.
They were affiliated to group movement. They're well known on the scene back in the day, anyways. You know,
Okay.
and for us, I was not like that. I didn't have. I was fresh from Egypt, and you know, I thought that was it, and khalas, I went. But these guys, I mean, there was a lot of ideological justification, or attempts at justification, I should say, to do what they did. And even there were brothers inside who were of that same kind of manhaj and methodology, who weren't there for terrorism convictions, but they were there for fraud, and that's quite common on the scene as well.
But still held the same position.
But they were just doing things in Darul Harb, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh!
It's halal,
Don't get into that conversation.
No, we digress.
Difference of
That
opinion.
has caused me a lot of headaches, man, brothers. Wallahi, honestly. I mean, I've heard of a case of a brother going to Tesco and stealing a donut.
No, we've had bangs, we've had shots.
That'll help.
Krispy Kreme.
That Krispy Kreme is going to help you, brother.
Yeah, that
Yes,
original
it's gonna-
glaze.
mashallah.
Fisabilillah.
So you met within prison brothers who were very entrenched ideologically in what they were
Absolutely.
doing, and
Absolutely.
others that were involved in other shenanigans.
Absolutely, yes.
So kind of moving on from
Yeah.
that, it leads me on to kind of my next question, which is why Medina University?
You know, I don't think I've ever explained how this happened, subhanAllah. So what happened? I came out of prison, and you know, I continued. I was on not bail. What is it? I was on probation.
Yes.
You know, very stringent conditions.
Yeah.
You know, but gradually they reduced over the time. I went back to live with my parents. Eventually, alhamdulillah. Then eventually I got my own place to live and stuff like that. And it just so happened that my father, who used to work in the Saudi embassy as an accountant, he then moved on to the Kuwaiti embassy, but his close friend from the Saudi embassy, Uncle Mustafa, may Allah reward him. The best of rewards. You know, I remember, guys, in prison, Aqsim Billah, I remember in my cell, I used to have a nice view of like, very far view, but you can see like the road, and you can see like the horizon.
Yeah.
I remember once I made a dua of sincerity, guys. Wallahi, I believe this is da'wah to sidq. It was a sincere dua, I believe, from the heart. I was certain of the promise of Allah Jalla wa Ala. And I made a dua and asked Allah, Ya Allah, allow me to seek knowledge. Allow me and facilitate me. And of course, the only place in my head popped up was Medina. I said, Ya Allah, allow me to go to Medina.
Yeah.
Obviously, guys, I'm sitting in a prison cell on a terrorism conviction. There is no way in my mind that will ever happen. But you know what? That was a sincere dua I made to Allah. And Allah Jalla wa Ala, Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, La yata'adhamuhu shay. Nothing can overcome Allah. Nothing's too great for Allah. Ask Allah. If you ask Allah for Jannah, اسألوه الفردوس الأعلى. Ask for the highest in Jannah, Firdaus. So I asked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So anyways, fast forward now about 2 years. Yeah, I'm out of prison. My stretch is nearly finished. My father gets a call from Uncle Mustafa, and he says to him, subhanAllah, so randomly, he says, does your son want to go to Medina? I don't know where that conversation never happened. And my father was like, you know what? I remember my son said this. Yes, he said, okay, great. Tell him to bring his awraq, his papers, because the Medina University delegation, for the first time ever, they're coming to London and they're going to conduct interviews.
Wow.
This is, you know, say.
So me and Aki have this thing called that when everything just hits the spot all the time.
Absolutely.
Yeah, like perfect timing, everything.
It's a pearl like interconnected.
Yeah.
Bang,
Absolutely.
bang, bang.
Subhanallah. So I said, yes, Dad, yes, Allahu Akbar, please, let me go. So I got the time, got my papers ready, and I was newly married at the time as well. my sentence just finished, so I was driving around this. I remember
Subhanallah.
this 56 plate BMW M
Yeah?
Sport, and
Go on.
Firing, just
Go
on all
firing.
cylinders. It's
I was like, yes,
relentless.
Medina. I was like, my wife was there as well. And so I went for my interview. And it was subhanAllah, it was beautiful, man. It was really beautiful. I mean, the question they asked me, I remember, firstly they asked, how much Quran do you know? And I said, alhamdulillah, I know all of the Quran.
Did they ask you where you learnt it?
No, they didn't.
He said, come, I'll show you.
Alhamdulillah, I just learned it here. And then they asked me, what are the biggest problem that you're facing? Do you have any issues like manhaj? And I knew, I had a gut feeling, subhanAllah, guys,
That they had an inkling of what happened.
No. But I had a gut feeling that they were asking me about our brothers who go to extremes
Okay.
in labeling others mubtadi'ah and innovators and stuff like this.
But isn't that kind of expected though?
Yeah, no, but what is it? At that time, Medina University was gradually moving away from that.
Yeah.
Okay.
They were moving away from that, yeah. So I had an inkling thing. So
Try
I,
and suss you out.
exactly, to see what I'm about, right? So I said this. I said, brothers going to Tabdir, with the little Arabic that I knew at the time, of course, yeah. Brothers going to Tabdir, they label others innovators, they go here, they go there, blah, blah, blah. And this is, it's causing big problems in the da'wah. And I saw them say, okay, fine. After the interview, I was like, I'm not sure. Uncle Mustafa comes, he's like, come, let me take you to the head of the culture at Tache. Yeah. He took me to the head. I was like, why? But little do I know, after I went to Saudi, I realized that's like a formality. When basically you've been accepted to something, you go see the head guy, he puts his signature literally in any part of the paper and he passes it on. So he took me, he was like, asked me a few questions, little signature, and that was it. Then I didn't hear anything apart from that.
Respect Uncle Mustafa.
May Allah reward him.
Amin, yeah. He's still alive?
He's still alive, alhamdulillah.
Yeah,
Still alive.
Allah bless him and preserve him. He sounds like an outright G, mashallah.
Yeah.
SubhanAllah.
Came through fully.
Allah, he did. And he just took me to random people and introduced me, and I left, and I didn't hear anything for a few months. Now I go to a place with my wife. I think it's called S.A.L.A in Essex. So I thought, let me just go away for the weekend quickly, right? And because I remember at that time, guys, I haven't left the country after my conviction. I couldn't even take my wife on a honeymoon. We were newly married because I was thinking, you know what? I don't know. Can I travel? I don't know what will happen to me if I travel. So I'm there with her, right, in this little thing next to the beach or whatever, and I get a phone call from one of my close friends. And he's like, Muhammad, you've been accepted to Medina, akhi. I'm like, what? Sorry, come again, bro? He's like, the list is out. Your name's on it. I'm like, what? Allah is starting to hit me. I go online. Wait, I didn't have my laptop. I think it was my phone. I go on and see my name's there. I'm like, Aisha, I've been accepted, subhanAllah. Can you believe it? My wife, Miskina. And it was a bittersweet moment for her because we were newly married.
Yeah.
She knew that I would have to leave. And, and then I was like, alhamdulillah. So then there was a second stage now. Anyone who gets accepted to Medina Shabab, you have to go back to the culture at Tache. You've got to take your papers. It's a lot of running around.
Yeah, we had.
I'm sure most brothers don't even make it.
Process and a half,
It's a long process. It's a long process.
So I'm there, I'm running left, right and centre, and I've got finally everything except for a police letter.
Oh dear.
Yes. Which goes through my, obviously it's going to disclose my conviction. It's like a CRB basically.
Yeah, of course.
So I come to the main guy in the culture at Tache. And I knew I could not get a CRB. I can't. It's just no point, right? And I said to my wife, if Allah Jalla wa'ala wants this to happen, it will happen. I have to do my part, and the rest is in the hands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I go there, lo and behold, I see this very slender man coming down. He looks at me, he looks at my name on the paper, and he's like, are you Khalid's son?
Okay.
Khalid is my father's name.
Okay.
He's like, are you Khalid's son? I was like, yeah. I'm Khalid. My father's Khalid. He's like, oh, mashallah, tabarakallah. You know what? Wait right here. I'm gonna go upstairs and bring the papers straight away. And he completely, this whole thing of the CRB was ignored.
This is. I tell you something, Sheikh. When in our podcast, where you find a lot of interjections. I'm admiring just listening to the story.
MashaAllah. That's just, we were talking, we gave that.
That's the continuation.
This is now.
You know what I mean? It's just a thing that me and Aki have. It's just when everything just hitting the spot all the time.
It's unbelievable.
It was such a crazy turn of events.
I know, honestly, subhanAllah, it was so crazy, man.
Because that's the moment you thought, I say everything.
Yeah, I thought, khalas, that's it, I'm just kind of carrying on with life. I had a good job at the time, alhamdulillah, through one organisation. I thought, okay, I'm just going to carry on with life, And lo and behold, half an hour later, my papers are there, my visas, everything's there. Done.
Wicked. Sheikh, let me ask you this then, right? So you went off to Medina University. Medina University is very well known for producing scholars and senior tulab al-ilm who come back to the Western world. And generally speaking, they're no different to Al-Azhar or the Darul Ulooms of the world, the major institutions in terms of producing scholars who then go on to Islamic institutions, masajid, and then maybe speakers at events. Do you feel, especially as someone with your background and lived experience of wanting or attempting to go to Afghanistan to fight jihad, do you feel that there is a major disconnect between the scholarship that's produced, whether it be Medina University or even the other institutes, and that of the challenges that the youth are facing, like you did when you were in your 20s, right? Because let's be frank about it, right? If, for the listeners who watched episode 1, you'd know this as well. The very idea of Blood Brothers was born out of what? What was that conversation we had?
Well, it was born out from the idea of there's so many people that we see in the public eye and social media who we love and enjoy listening to. And
now I'm talking about the ISIS interaction now.
Oh, that specific conversation?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, it all kicked off from me and Dilly having a role play.
We literally did 1 hour role play.
Are you serious?
Literally, you just sat in our...
It wasn't 1 hour. I think it was well over 1 hour. It was from 11 till 2 in the morning.
So I was a youngster from East London who wanted to basically kill people here or go off to Syria.
Okay.
And Aki was the
basically, you can say that I was someone who was outsourced by a relative to calm this young man down.
And literally, Sheikh, we just did role play for 1 hour.
Okay.
So what I want to ask you then is, I would even go as far as to say the sentiments that you had, the ghira that you had for the ummah, identifying that it was going through much hardship and you wanted to do something about it. I would go as far as to even say the sentiment of those who go off to go and fight. I would even dare I say even those who go and commit acts which are clearly prohibited in Islam. That the sentiments, you'll find that amongst many Muslims.
Absolutely.
I just feel that there is a major disconnect between the scholarship that's been produced from the Muslim majority world and the disconnect with the shabab here.
Yes.
Because Muslims, let's be frank about it, angry.
Absolutely.
We're vexed, and if we are Ummatul Wahid, and we know of the hadith where we are like one body, and when we see one is harmed, we respond in favor, So when we see Palestine, when we see Kashmir, when we see Afghanistan, Iraq, Burma, East Turkestan, literally the list is endless.
Absolutely. Even UK, what's happening in the UK?
So the sentiment is correct, is one which is positive and shows ghira. How then does that transfer? How is that channeled? I personally feel that there is a disconnect.
Absolutely.
I feel that there is a disconnect between the scholarship that's been produced
and how they handle their own emotions when they observe what's happening around the world, and how the Muslims who maybe don't have as much knowledge, how they handle those emotions.
I think
how do you feel?
There's also the thing is that, look, we can't divorce ilm and scholarship, and we can't divorce this from the waqi', from the reality that we live in. We can't divorce it from contextualization. Now, unfortunately, you see many people, even if they were the most knowledgeable people, it doesn't mean that he can relate with the average Joe, the average Ahmed. It doesn't necessarily mean that. We have certain people for certain crowds. Even some of my mashayikh, they could not relate with the awam, but they could relate with the students of knowledge. And it's the students of knowledge that attend their lessons privately or otherwise who then disseminate that knowledge to the communities. You have students of knowledge from my kind of people I've graduated with who have gone to become, mashallah, very good imams. You have others who have gone on to not even go into the da'wah field, who have gone to do other things, but they're still playing an active role in the youth. Why? Because they lived that background. They can connect. Many of them, had a type of jahiliyyah per se on the roads and stuff like that. So they can relate.
So you're countering that there actually are imams
Yes.
who have been produced by Medina University and perhaps even other institutes that are fulfilling this duty.
Precisely. But, I have to be a bit more caveated here in my discussion and say that I do not believe that the curriculum in Jami'ah Islamiyya bin Medina will equip someone like this and will develop someone like this. Someone like this has been developed by himself, first and foremost.
Have their own culture.
Or it's been developed by his murabbi, his person who's responsible for tarbiyah in Medina. But all of these are separate from the university. This has to be made clear. The university is an academic place. You go into, just like here in UK, we go to our lessons, we have our lecturers, you leave. You come, submit your coursework, do your exams, and you leave.
The curriculum isn't tailored for you to go and be effective in
It is
London.
not tailored at all. And there are even bigger problems in the curriculum, which is another whole kind of discussion.
Is this how traditional scholarship was, by the way?
Of course not, akhi.
Because
this is the problem with
are we not creating, and wallahi, I don't mean this in any disrespect, wallahi, may Allah preserve and bless all our tulab al-ilm and ulama who have invested their life and time, but are we not essentially imitating Western institutions and creating theoretical bookworms who are detached from real life issues? And from my limited reading and understanding of Islamic history, that was never the case. Ulama were accessible. They were very multifaceted. They were very approachable. They were able to they were able to deal with, and which was a very prophetic thing, deal with different peoples of different societies, of different backgrounds.
Absolutely.
I just feel that Look, I don't want this to be a bashing of ulama. Yes. Wallahi, I don't.
No, of course not. It's not that. It's the institutions. Yeah. But not all institutions are the same. We need to also make that very clear as well. There's certain other institutions. For example, Nadwa al-Ulama is very different from Medina University per se. There's a lot of emphasis on, I would not say traditionalist kind of Islam, because of course Medina has that as well. But there's more. There is a one-on-one interaction. This is the same for other places. For example, Mauritania. Mauritania now, for example, if you go to the Mahdara, they call it, it's literally like a moving tent with a moving kind of, Bedouins. The ulama themselves are, they have camels and they feed and stuff like that. There's a large emphasis on tarbiyah because the community, the environment will play a factor and a role in that. Okay? That will give you tarbiyah, and the mashayikh will facilitate that happening. But when you have seminaries, now academic seminaries, that traditional kind of spiritual, dare I say, aspect is lost. And now the intent is to pass exams and so on and so forth. I mean, for example, I share a story that Shaykh Abdul Karim Khudair, Allah yahfadhu, mentioned one of my mashayikh. He said, when they were young, they used to go and memorize the Quran in these rundown masajid, no AC, no air condition, nothing like that, but all of them will be hufadh. But now the masajid, mashallah, mukayyafa, they have beautiful ACs, mashallah, the comfort level is up to there, No one's hafidh anymore.
Oh dear.
No one comes out hafidh anymore. And even one of my mashayikh, Shaykh Ahmed Sunusi, who was one of my, subhanAllah, he's not very well known, but I consider him min ayatillah, a sign from the signs of Allah, in his knowledge and how he conducts himself. I mean, he used to sit after Fajr, very skinny man, subhanAllah, he used to sit after, and young, mid-30s, he would sit after Fajr, and he would have students, professors from the university even, from Fajr all the way until Dhuhr, coming to him with different lessons. You have Balagha, Nahu, Sarf, Fiqh, Mustalah al-Hadith, Usul al-Fiqh, you name the subjects. And he would just sit there cross-legged, not a single book in front of him.
Wow.
Wallah, not a single book in front of him. But when he speaks, it's as if he's, subhanAllah, has all of the kutub open in front of him. So he used to say to us that the problem with talab al-ilm, the problem with Western, modern day academia, because that's what it is now.
That is what it is.
That is academia, right? Is that it messes with the students' intentions. Before, people would study for the sake of ilm, to remove the knowledge, ignorance from themselves, from others, and to get closer to Allah, to preserve the sharia. This is one of the greatest intentions you can have, which is to seek knowledge to preserve the sharia. You are a vanguard of the sharia. When you have that mindset, let's talk about mindset. Everyone's talking about mindsets, right? When you have that mindset, your ethos is completely different than someone who's going to pass an exam.
So I can ask you something. So I just want to pick up on something you said. To be vanguards of the Sharia, could it then be kind of argued that since there isn't a holistic manifestation of the Sharia on earth, that this has also contributed towards this kind of institution and kind of seminaries that are basically just theory exam based?
Absolutely. Ahsant. And we're going to come back to the Khilafah Uthmaniyya now, isn't it?
No.
But the thing
we
is,
love the K word.
Sageman wrote a book. I think his name is Mark Sageman. He wrote a book called Leaderless Jihad.
Yes. Mark Sageman.
You know about it? Oh, right, great.
Our brother Asim Qureshi has cites him in a lot of his works.
Oh, excellent.
He's the former CIA guy, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
And he talks about an assumption of authority. Even when I was kind of went through my issue, everyone talks with such authority over Islam, such command, such ownership, that you start, unless you're nuanced in usul and stuff like that, you start to believe, wow, that's it. Islam is this. Islam is this. Shaykh said this. Allah said it. And Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam said it. That's it. With such authority to impose that on others. Do you get it?
Yeah, of course.
So that's part of the problem, akhi. It's assumption of authority.
Yeah.
So
which is due to the vacuum of.
Yes.
So you gave, you're discussing how, because of the way we see academia now that is set up for knowledge to be gained in the Muslim world, whether it's Bidhi or Azhar or whatever else it may be. How do you remedy that now with people that have come with the new batch of mashayikh that have come back to the Western world, whether it's UK or anywhere else in Europe.
No.
They come back, they're loaded with knowledge, they have knowledge they didn't have before. They've been advised and informed physically with qualifications, as well as their peers that you're qualified to speak on XYZ matter. How do you now remedy that? Because there's a void, there's a spiritual void because of the manner in which it's been taught potentially.
Yes.
With a pure mindset. How do you feel that?
Can I just add to that, Shaykh? So maybe you can
because it must be difficult.
Two birds in one stone kind of. So adding on to exactly what Aki just asked, how do you now, with the Tulab al-Ilm and the new up and coming scholars that are being produced by these seminaries and great institutions, do you now come back to the West in the climate of the war on terror and now deal with the youth who forget about the foundations of Islam, which is essentially ideally where we want everyone to start? But they now need to know stuff about the Sharia, about the Hudud, about Al-Wala wal-Bara, about Khilafah, about Jihad, about citizenship, about when we can't fight, because it's being discussed everywhere. How do you marry that, coming back to here, with youth that now have these questions? Because if you don't give them the questions that are killing them inside, they'll just go to the internet like me.
Well, I mean, look, there's a saying, right? Someone who doesn't have something can't give it.
Okay.
Now, the problem with many of the brothers who graduate and come back, and we've seen this because some of them have come back and caused more problems than they should have, which is that if you don't have tarbiyah, if tarbiyah was not given to you, okay, then you in turn can't give that to someone else. Okay, you can't in turn can't give that to someone else. So you can't then take your knowledge that you've learned, and it's like honestly it's like filling sometimes a bit of it's like a dirty glass you're filling with water. That water will become murky. Unfortunately, we've seen this many times. Forget the spiritual aspect, that's a major thing, and I can't downplay that enough. But even lack of tarbiyah, lack of contextualization, even lack of usul, akhi, to be honest with you, this is a key thing I want to emphasize on. Lack of maqasid al-sharia, lack of fiqh in general. If you don't have this tarbiyah, and even seerah, going back to it, how did Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam interact with everyone around him? There's a beautiful book by Shaykh Osman called Kayfa Amalahum. How did he interact with them? And he goes to how did Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam interact with munafiqun, how did he interact with this person, that person. If you don't have this type of tarbiyah,
what was the name of the book by Shaykh Munajid?
Kayfa Amalahum. How did he treat them? How did he do it? It's been translated to English as well.
Okay.
Very good book.
We'll plug the book in it'll be on the podcast.
Yes. Then you can't then give this tarbiyah to others. Okay? You can't give this tarbiyah to others. In fact, you might even assume and think you're giving tarbiyah, you're creating a bigger disaster than if you will. And nowadays, just to touch on upon what you mentioned, the youth now, I believe the environment is much more chaotic than it was when I was growing up. I'll tell you why. Because now, not only are they faced with the onslaught of liberalism, the liberalization of Islam coming from institutions like Kulim institution and so on and so forth, they're faced with now the upsurge of so-called doubts that have been spread now about Islam, even in the academic sense of the word. They're faced with a lot more, the war on terror. They're faced with a lot more than we were faced with at the time. So I said my words might be harsh, guys. They might be harsh. Brothers, even who my friends who are students of knowledge, and they might disagree with me, but wallahi, I honestly believe that if students of knowledge don't want to become redundant and unnecessary, okay, then they have to expand their toolbox. They have to expand their toolbox. Going away and study. Wallahi, one of my friends from Medina, subhanAllah, his name is as well. From Pakistan. He actually called me the other day. He memorized 20 books in hadith. Brothers, he knew it like we know Fatiha. He was an inspiration for me. I mean, ask him any hadith, أخرجوا كذا كذا, so-and-so narrated it, this sahabi, and he gives you the nas of the hadith, like a database. Beautiful. But he had no fit. Oh, can we say this, Mohammed Osman? Can you? Maybe we have to
forgive the Shaykh.
Yeah, the question is fiqh now, understanding of this and applying this. Okay, take this, apply it here without tarbiyah and stuff like this. You're going to create problem. Now, if you come here with this kind of hifth and this kind of understanding and stuff, and we always tried to do this in Medina. This is what we do. We try to memorize hadith, memorize mutun, study them, devote our lives to have complete tafarruq fi ilm. But it's come to the stage now where you might be good for an imam. You might be good for maybe fatwa if you reach that level, dealing with nawazil, new issues. But that's about it. That's about it. If someone came to you now and said, how do you deal with Aisha radiallahu anha? Why did Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam marry her at such a young age?
Or could they deal with the question of Qurayza and these kind of things?
Qurayza. What about inheritance now in Islam? What about divorce? Divorce laws. Are women subjugated in Islam? What about these new issues that are being thrown about now in the da'wah scene? you're unaware of them. And your studies, because you're lacking that background in political philosophy, or you're lacking in general philosophy, especially moral philosophy is one of the main things now, you're not equipped well enough to deal with. Now, that's something I faced after coming back, which is kind of what led me to S.A.L.A.M.
No, but I don't mean to digress, but isn't there also a danger, and there's actually proven evidence of where traditional Orthodox Tulab al-Ilm and some shuyukh, some in the States, we even had them in the UK, where they've acknowledged that issue, engaged in Western philosophical academia, and literally went completely the other way. Because then what ended up happening was that an inferiority complex that they had, and what they knew of normative Islam had then become tarnished and tainted with Western philosophical ideas.
Okay.
There's at least two prominent examples, without mentioning names, in the UK and the US that have been affected.
Yes. This actually brings me to another point which I was going to talk about, which is the importance of having a group around you. Surrounding yourself with people that you trust their mashura from, you trust their viewpoints, you trust their knowledge, even if it's not Islamic related, but you trust their knowledge in whatever field they're a specialist in. And surrounding yourself. The problem is, brothers, is that I've seen when you distance yourself from others that should be around you, your circle, this is what happens.
Absolutely. I can't agree with you.
Whether, subhanAllah, brother, wallahi, whether it's kind of like the over philosophication of Islam, or whether it's other things as well, like falling off completely. Stop practicing, man. We know, brother, subhanAllah, one brother from Qura, he came back, Allah musta'an, he completely, went completely different. He left. I think he's still Muslim, but the fact I have to say that is telling you the situation. So you have to surround yourself with people that you trust, and try and find a mentor that you trust. So the nature of learning, brothers, is that we're learning new things. Okay, this is our nature as Banu Adam, as creations, as sons of Adam. We learn new things. We are continuously learning, as Imam Ahmad from the cradle to the grave, right? And it isn't just Islamic sciences, it's anything, because hikmah, Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, wisdom, dalatul mu'min, it's the lost property of the believer. Aynama wajadaha akhadaha, wherever he finds it, wherever, he'll take it. So we're learning, we continue to learn.
So back to this issue where we have Shabab in the UK who are watching the news, reading the news, seeing wars, oppression, injustices, seeing every Tom, Dick and Harry speaking about Khilafah and Islamic State and Sharia law and Hudud and all this kind of stuff. Everyone but the Muslims are talking about fundamental aspects of our deen. It's not an ideal situation that the youth even want to be in. But how do you deal with, as an imam or someone who is newly graduated from Medina University or even the other prominent seminaries, how do you deal with a generation of Muslim youth who have had to kind of been fast-tracked?
It's in their everyday vocabulary now. So when they discuss Islam, or
these things come up,
when you ask them about Islam and how is your lived experience of Islam at the age of 17, 18, 19, 20,
these things come up.
What are your interactions in university, on campus? What kind of pressure do you get from institutions that you're currently in, whether you're in college, uni, or whatever it may be? What do you speak about at home? What do you speak about with your boys? Whatever it may be, you'll find that a lot of the youth, especially from my experience, are discussing matters that some people who have dedicated their entire decades are shying away from, because they know how complicated and how...
I don't think complicated is the word. I think you're looking for another word. Not even murky.
Controversial,
perhaps.
Concerning on the potential impact it can have on them personally.
Look, man,
but it just goes to show that does that mean that the people who have dedicated their life learning have established a wisdom? Or does it show that the youngsters are lacking wisdom and are just basically discussing what's been shoved down their throat anyway?
No, but we have friends who are not necessarily practicing, right? And they've come to us and they go, look, man, I had a customer come and see a car today, and the guy asked about ISIS and what an Islamic State is. I had this guy who I met in this particular meeting, and he said, do you guys really chop the hand of the thief, and do you guys really kill the apostates?
We had a brother who had a surveyor come to his house to value his home, and the first thing he said was, he goes, so do you agree with ISIS?
Yeah, this is just a surveyor.
This is sentence 1 of the visit.
Yeah. So given that reality,
and then said to him, so how long has your wife been in the country for? She was born here.
So given that reality,
and I think you can see it however you want, but I think the guy was just making conversation.
He was just casually making conversation. So even when you speak to some of the brothers up and down the country, do you guys want to be in a position where you have to talk and articulate and defend things? Ideally not, because we don't know about these things. But since we're given the context and the reality that we're in, Can you help us? What do you do? Do you then tell them no, go back to basics and say no comment?
Yeah.
Or is there a level of expectation, responsibility?
In my experience, this kind of rhetoric of this doesn't concern you, don't worry about it, it doesn't work.
No.
Because for the reasons you mentioned, people are experiencing this, man. University, college, a surveyor coming to your house, it's there. So we have to equip the Muslims, the general Muslims, with arguments that are robust, that are battle tested, that are strong, that are, you know, based on what we know of the Sharia and also what we know from political philosophy as well. And it has to be articulated in an intelligent way, enough for them to digest it and also return it.
Yeah.
And give it if needed. And this is, well, I don't want to keep plugging S.A.L.A.M, but this is what we're doing. Just the other day, alhamdulillah.
Bare plugs.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Keep
sorry
going,
about that, guys.
Carry on.
Can you put links as well? Is that possible?
What, donation link as well? There may be some conflict now, but why there's no conflict?
So I recently, alhamdulillah, my book got published as well. Yeah. I just published a book.
MashaAllah.
It's called The Woman in the Text.
Wow.
And it's a collection
of essays. It'll be on the bottom of the video.
It's a collection of essays dealing with controversial issues connected to women. Many things that unfortunately people shy away from talking about. I mean, wallahi, brothers, you know this essay, the one I wrote about Aisha radiallahu anha and the union of her Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam at such a young age. You know, I believe, and I don't want to blow my own trumpet, you know, but it's one of...
Should we blow it for you?
No.
Go on.
Yeah. It's definitely one of the, inshallah ta'ala, you know, a very good piece of research. I sincerely believe that. I sincerely believe it's a good piece of research, okay? Yeah. And I hope people can read it and come back to me with corrections, inshallah, yeah? I actually delivered a khutbah based on this essay because I talk about it from a more philosophical framework first. That's the first thing I deal with, right? So if you use their kind of principles and you show from their principles, wait a minute, extrapolate yourself from the situation. Why am I even asking this question? Why should I even ask this question for? Is it good? How do I substantiate what good and evil is in the first place? All right, and I talk about it from there. I talk about my historical record of comparative religion, and even at the end, I kind of nuanced it with an usuli discussion, which, by the way, is the most powerful way to answer this, which is that Islam. I'll very quickly say, which is that Islam prohibits any kind of harm. The Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "La darar wa la dirar." And hadith mursal, many accept the view as weak, but the meaning is authentic by consensus, right? La darar wa la dirar. There is no harm, and nor is there reciprocating harm. So this transcends any age of marriage. Because if a person, for example, was elderly, but being married will cause harm, and you know, consummation of that marriage will cause harm, for example, Islam prohibits it. Yes. Likewise, underage to an extent where, you know, it would cause harm. It's irrelevant. Mentally impaired person, you name it. Islam has a firm foundation to stop any type of harm happening, whether it's physical, whether it's psychological, so on and so forth. So anyways, I got called to invited to deliver a khutbah one masjid. I thought, okay, I didn't have anything prepared, in all honesty. And so I thought, let me just deliver this khutbah based on my essay, right? And I think it was the first time most of that congregation have ever heard this in a khutbah. And this is one of the main reasons why people leave Islam, brothers. I hope you know this. And afterwards, I had such a positive response. I had uncles, grey beards, walking stick, coming to me and saying, brother, wallahi, my iman has gone higher now.
Alhamdulillah.
My iman's gone high. One brother came and he works in the media. He's like, you know, Shaykh, I've never heard a khutbah like this before. This is honestly the best khutbah. I've been to so many talks, lectures, conferences, but this one actually had some kind of meaning behind it. Was this khutbah
recorded? I was just going to say, is it available online?
I don't think it's online, no.
Well, try to deliver it again somewhere and make sure it's recorded, inshallah.
Absolutely, I'll try to do that. I'll try to do that, inshallah.
We just have to
we need to make it clear, you're not calling for the change of the laws of this country to,
no, of course not,
to make it underage, but we're giving an accurate kind of account and a defense from the popular detractors, the Orientalist detractors of their view of Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, which is that he was depraved and a'udhu billah, all of these things, right?
Yes.
And even the far right, this is the main kind of thing.
It's the whole accusation.
The go-to.
Yes,
absolutely.
But Shaykh, look, just so we can move on to the next thing. If you could give one message to your fellow peers, even those who may not even come from your kind of theological background or school of thought, etc.
Aspiring students.
Students, those who have kind of made it, they're here, and they have to face the shabab who have these kind of questions and queries. What would you say to them in terms of dealing with? I would say, number one, humble yourself. Humble yourself, because it is very hard, brothers. Once you've memorized Sahih Bukhari and Muslim, you've memorized about 20 mutun, the texts in aqeed and fiqh and so on and so forth. It's very hard to humble yourself now and to say, you know what, I don't actually know anything about this topic, and please teach me, educate me. You know, and I had these kind of conversations after I came back. So I would say, humble yourself. The essence of ilm is tawadu'.
It is tawadhu. It's humility. If you lose humility, you've lost everything. And Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said the person with kibr will not enter into Jannah.
So do you turn the shabab away then, as a result of not having that?
This message is addressed to my peers. This is addressed to people who are aspiring to tulab al-ilm and stuff like that. Humble yourself. Become well educated, not just in the Islamic sciences, but branch out. Branch out, but have your circle around you. Have your circle around you. Now,
what advice would you give with regards to practically a shift in attitude? If someone's struggling with that, if some people have maybe got an intention or an idea that they want to do this because they feel they have the ability to, because they've shown it academically here with their GCSEs and A-levels and university, whatever it may be, but they have an intention to, come and be a hero in the UK. I want to be a spiritual hero. I want to bring knowledge to my area. Is that a dangerous mindset to start with?
The thing is, this, I think it's linked to the safe sect mindset.
Oh dear.
Yes, oh dear. Yeah. It's linked to
which exists in nearly every jama'ah and every group. Let's be honest about it.
It always existed.
Yeah.
It existed with the Mu'tazila. Yeah. It existed with nearly every sect in Islam, attributed to Islam. Everyone had it. And I think it feeds off that. You have to respect your people around you, respect your peers, respect the people who have grey beards in this da'wah. Even the uncles, the people who are not involved, who have not respect them. Respect their wisdom, learn from their experiences. To have this kind of mindset that I will make the change. I will be the cause of rectification, of islah. You probably cause more harm than good. Wow. Respect those who are around you, respect those, cooperate, and this is a key message here, cooperate with those who are doing good, irrespective, and yes, I'm going to be slightly controversial, irrespective of their theological background, whether I myself am Athari, Hanbali, and he is Ash'ari and Maturidi, whatever the case may be, you have a common maslahah now, you have a common benefit. Unite upon that particular benefit. We're not saying ignore the differences. No, don't ignore them. We're not saying يَعْذِرُ بَعْضُنَا بَعْضًا فِي مَا اخْتَلَفْنَا فِيهِ, as Ikhwan Muslimun say. We're not saying that we ignore what we have and no problem. No, don't ignore them. Deal with them academically. Deal with them in their particular...
But we said there's a time and place for those.
There's a time and a place for that. I'm not saying ignore it. Don't ignore it. This is the opposite of what we have learnt from our mashayikh and from our history and our tradition. Deal with it, but that doesn't mean you can't unite upon a specific benefit for Islam and the Muslims.
But Shaykh, okay, fully agree with you on that premise, right? But isn't there actually more greater things we can agree upon and unite upon with our brothers from different groups of movements than just one maslahah for the benefit of Islam and Muslims?
Absolutely.
So for example, let's all different groups unite on Prevent or the RSC. Isn't there actually more for us to unite upon the fact that we believe in one Allah?
But this was breakthrough, subhanAllah. Yeah. Because this RSC thing, everyone got on board nearly, as far as I'm aware.
Yeah, because everyone's scared that we're going to have a generation full of homosexuals and gays and gender
feared the impact.
Yeah. And precisely. And they should fear the impact of other things as well.
Of course.
Yeah. But I think it was a step in the right direction.
Alhamdulillah. May Allah, advance this. That's right. Unison between the different groups. I mean, Shaykh, as we draw closer to the end of the podcast, I don't want to end up opening a bigger kind of topic discussion, but it's one that I hope that we can at least give some kind of cursory insight to. So the podcast began with your journey to seeking knowledge of Arabic in Egypt. Yeah. There you became more aware of the state of the Ummah. Yes. You attempted to go to Afghanistan, didn't work out, came back, got lifted, did some time in Remand, came out, fixed up, sought knowledge. This is quite a wicked recap, isn't it?
Brilliant. Carry on, Flash, isn't it? You've been listening then.
Yeah? So and then all the goodness happened, right? But we still have an elephant in the room. And that is the state of the Ummah.
Yes.
Oppression, wars, injustice, occupation, invasion, dhulm, tyranny. So given that that's nearly the case in everywhere from Indonesia to Morocco, from as north as the Caucasus to South of Sudan, where I believe one of your parents are from.
My father's from Sudan, yeah.
Alhamdulillah. So, and obviously things have been happening in Sudan as well. So considering that this has actually become the norm of the Muslim majority for the best part of 100 years, how do we deal with issues pertaining to addressing injustice and tyranny. These kind of very controversial, politicized issues of rebelling against the ruler, obeying the ruler.
Yes.
How does a Muslim in the Muslim world, or even a Muslim who's part of this, the revivalist movements in the UK, how do you navigate around these things? Is there even a consensus on, let's say, are we allowed to rebel against the ruler?
And can I just add to that, just a little bit, Ustad, and that is, how do you, in a safe way, or is it even possible, considering the plethora of other difficult subjects that are being discussed and is already on the canvas for young Muslims? And I say young Muslims specifically because they may be the ones that struggle the most in understanding these matters, because they're very, very politically loaded, and you're very, very impressionable, and you don't sometimes have the knowledge to fall back on and the nuance to be able to know, right, this is how I handle it. This is when I talk about it, this is when I don't talk about it. Who do I trust to give me the knowledge?
And you know, the thing is that when we talk about what is the solution for the Muslims, we need to be honest with ourselves and understand that if there is a solution, then this solution has to be a holistic one, and it has to be a nuanced one, and it has to be one which every single, academic, every single kind of imam or sheikh or whatever can offer something and come to the table. It's not that one particular group has the answer at all. And this is what many of for example, the Salafi Jihadi brothers have fallen into, where they believe that the only correct solution, the only solution for Islam to fight is the physical kind of jihad.
No, but isn't that the means to attain a solution? The solution in that case would be, let's say, Khilafah. So, for example, I mean, let's be frank. Post the demise of the Ottoman period, there were three. There's probably more, but there's three prevalent revivalist groups that emerged. Ikhwan al-Muslimin, 1928, Hizb ut-Tahrir in 1956, and different variations of the Salafi Jihadi movement, right? I'm sure there were others that were more indigenous to their respective countries, but those were the three very amplified groups and movements that came about.
And ideologically, we're still associate to one of the three with regards to manhaj.
And many of the prisons of the regimes throughout the 50s, 60s, 70s, and 90s were made of people from these three groups. So given that, again, this discussion comes back to the state of the Muslim Ummah today. Can it really be compared to what was understood and took place in Islamic history, where our history was not perfect? We did have tyrannical rulers. We did have cases of civil war and civil strife and power struggles. But that was always from the perspective of the fact that we were a superpower and we had our own dawla, or we had khilafah, or we were just in a position of power.
That's right.
And having internal strife from the position of power is very different to having internal strife which has been orchestrated externally. So the point,
we're in a new situation, guys.
A very new situation.
Wallahi,
right?
we are in a situation which I think has only been periodically experienced in our time, which was the invasion of the Mongol in Baghdad,
58 to 60, 1258 to 1261.
And by the way, if you try and find who actually spoke about this from the ulama, who spoke about this particular period, you won't find much. This is something I'm still researching today. You will not find much, and it's very shocking. It's very strange as well, subhanallah. But that's a time which it mimics to a certain extent. I'm not going to be intellectual and disingenuous here and say it's like how we live now. It's a completely different situation, but it mimics it in certain respects.
No, but there are correlations.
There are correlations.
Because
it's not an absolute correlation.
Because nearly after 600 years, the Ummah at that time did not envisage that the institution of the Khilafah, as weak as that the Abbasiyah were at that time, that it would be full and ransacked in the manner in which it was. Where you can argue that for 3 years there was no Khilafah, or there was a shadow Khilafah, and which was then upheld by the Mamluks. So there is some correlation.
But the thing is, after this happened, this wasn't reflected in our scholarship. It wasn't reflected in how the books are written. Look at, for example, any book in fiqh of the former madhab, even other than the former madhab, the Zahiriyya, for example, Ibn Hazm Muhalla. Open up Kitab al-Jihad. What's the first thing you find? Kitab al-Jihad, وهو فرض كفاية.
It's a collective.
It's a collective obligation. Fard kifaya, that refers to what? Offensive jihad.
Offensive jihad, of course.
So you could see, because jihad al-dafa' or difa', when you're to protecting, it's not fard kifaya. It's fard al-ain.
No, fard al-ain, but wouldn't fard al-ain then apply to you directly defending your home and your women folk when the attack comes to your doorstep?
Yes, precisely.
That's
now,
protection,
but the problem is, I'm talking about open up any fiqhi manual. This is the first sentence you'll find. So it's referring to what? Offensive jihad.
Yeah.
So
in
the
ulama,
exactly, the ulama can never envisage that we'll ever come to a situation
where it have to be defensive.
It will have to be defensive.
Yes, of course.
Anything. And this is a major thing to understand, because if you try and separate contextualization of from the social political environment in which, or the milieu in which all of these books were written, you're going to be lost. You'll be like those brothers who pick up the books from the statements of the Salaf and start, the Salaf said this, boycott the innovator, don't sit with him, don't say salam, spit on his face. But yes, that was written in a very specific time when Ahlul Sunnah were at their strongest, at their peak. It wasn't talking about 2019 when what is Ahlul Sunnah in the first place? I mean, they're very far and few between.
It means different things to different people.
Precisely. Well, that's another discussion of itself, which I see Dilly, you want to go into certain things? We'll have to do a part 2 on this one.
Part 2 on that one,
sure. And
Chef picked up on that quick time.
Of course. I can see Dilly's, mashallah, khuruj, talking about khuruj against the hakim. He's alluding to the fact many of the Salaf did that against those oppressors and stuff like that.
Well, there were instances. There were instances where they did rebel, and there were instances where they didn't rebel.
100%. Ibn Abdul Barr talks about this. Ibn Hazm talks about this. Many people talk about this. SubhanAllah, it happened. It's a part of our history. We can't deny the fact. However, Shaykh Islam Ibn Taymiyyah, Abu Abbas Ibn Taymiyyah al-Harrani, he says in Minhaj al-Sunnah Nabawiyyah that there came a time where the Salaf differed in this. Many of them rebelled. This is a historical fact. I am not misquoting. You can find the books there. There are many sources. They did rebel. Muhammad ibn al-Ash'ath, the bay'ah of Imam Malik rahimahullah ta'ala, when he said the bay'ah that you have in your neck is void, and so he endorsed the qal' or the removal of the other hakim. Abdullah ibn Zubayr, you name it, there's many examples, and also Al-Hajjaj and stuff like this. Ibn Ashad Sa'id ibn Jubair, Al-Hasan al-Basri.
Many examples.
Even Hassan, Hussain radiallahu ta'ala anhu, and Yazid ibn Muawiyah. There's many examples.
One of the biggest examples.
I actually have a video about this on my channel, actually, where I talk about it in depth. Another plug. You have examples.
They'll be all at the bottom of the
You have examples where they just happen in history. However, Shaykh Osman said, yes, the Salaf, this happened. My words are going confusing. This happened at the time of the Salaf. However, generally, Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah rested on the fact that going against the Hakim, who was a zalim, an oppressor, Ja'ir, a tyrannical ruler, was prohibited. And this was the general consensus of Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah after the time of the Salaf, possibly due to the fact that the bloodshed that they saw it caused, and other things like this, other mafasid and harms. This is a great issue, it's a big issue, and it's a complex issue.
And one last thing, I know this is and you will be back on the Blood Brothers to discuss it, because this is a huge topic in of itself, right?
Absolutely.
But there's one very thing that I want to ask: can we actually compare the rulers of the past, many of whom were khulafa or sultans or the governors of legitimate khulafa, right? Who the ummah had given bay'ah to, and as the ahl wali wal aqd, etc. Can we compare those instances of tyrannical rule to today's, where classically and historically speaking, whilst there may have been instances of tyranny and oppression, fundamental things pertaining to the deen was being fulfilled? The frontiers, the frontiers, the frontiers were being protected. Dawah and jihad was being created. Zakah was being collected and distributed. All these major shari'i conditions, fundamental mechanisms were being made. Can we make that comparison? The comparison today, where, let's be frank about it, there is no Islam from a practical manifestation.
I mean, let's be honest with you. I mean, for example, if you look at Syria now, and that's a perfect case study, and I do hope many academics focus on Syria now, and even may Allah subhanahu alleviate the distress our brothers are experiencing. It's a very good case study. Egypt is also a very good case study for what's happening. There's actually a book that was published recently, S.A.L.A.M with Egypt as a case study by Ahmed Salim. You know, the situation here is that there is no Islam. In the case of Bashar Assad, to be brutally honest, there was no Islam. There's no Islam. This is like a consensus of the scholars that he is not a Muslim. He was Nusayri, which is a sect, from the Batiniyah and so on and so forth, right? So you can't now be disingenuous and make a comparison with these type of rulers who are not hukam shar'iyun. They're not shar'i rulers in the first place. All of what we talk about is reference to a hakim shar'i. A hakim shar'i, okay? This hakim shar'i, yes, he may be a zalim, he might be tyrannical, he might be adil, he might be just, and so on and so forth. But a hakim who is not a hakim shar'i, meaning he is a tyrannical ruler, he doesn't have Islam in the first place, it's a completely different issue. Now we look at it from an usuli perspective in terms of masalih and mafasid, and we can't then do qiyas and compare, compare with what happened in the past with our salaf, when that kind of social political environment was as it was, and we described how it was. Okay, so it requires, look, and Allah Jalla wa Ala says, وَإِذَا جَاءَهُمْ أَمْرٌ مِنْ أَمْنِ أَوْ الْخَوْفِ أَذَاعُوا بِهِ. When the issue of fear or security comes to them, they spread it. وَلَوْ رَدُّوهُ إِلَى الرَّسُولِ وَلَوْ رَدُّوهُ إِلَى اللَّهِ وَرَسُولِ وَلَوْ رَدُّوهُ إِلَى اللَّهِ وَرَسُولِهِ لَعَلِمَهُ الَّذِينَ يَسْتَنبِطُونَهُ مِنْهُمْ. If only they referred it back to Allah and the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and those who have the knowledge to extrapolate and interpret the situation based on the Quran, based on the Sunnah, meaning the ulama. And the tafsir of this is referring back to the ulama. So we have to refer back to the ulama who are trusted, the mainstream ulama who are agreed upon by the Muslims, and refer back to them for guidance. However, our situation now is slightly different to the extent that the scholars are not enough now. Now there's a lot more factors at play. We have to refer back to economists now as well, people who are aware of the politics of what's happening now. It's not just a kind of monolithic thing, anymore. It's so diverse and so chaotic, and so it's a very, very, very delicate situation now.
Shaykh, as we bring the podcast to a close, can you just briefly comment on? There's a verse in the Quran, I forgot which surah it was, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, obey Allah, the Messenger, and those who rule over you. Now, isn't there a caveat of obeying those who rule over you, that they also obey Allah and His Messenger?
No. This is what I said about a hakim shari. A hakim who fulfills the conditions of a shari. He is a legitimate shari conditions. Of course, you can go back to Ahkam Sultaniya, Al-Nawardi, Al-Qadi Abu Ya'la, and many others who have spoken about this. Abu al-Ma'ali al-Juwayni in Ghiyath al-Umam. There's so many, Al-Qadi, Ibn Jama'a, many books have been written about this, right? There's certain conditions. The madhab differ slightly on the conditions, right?
But generally, there is a general consensus on the main
practice and stuff like that. Yes. But what we have to be nuanced about is the one who is a zalim, who's an oppressor, versus the one who is now not an oppressor, either. The one who is not an oppressor, there is absolute consensus that it is impermissible to rebel against him. There's consensus that it is haram, absolutely impermissible to do khuruj or even qal' of him, because he is adil, he is just. Okay, as Abu Ja'far al-Tahawi says in his وَلَا نَرَى الْخُرُوجَ عَلَى الْحُكَّامِ. We don't view that it's permissible to do khuruj against the hukam. وَإِن جَارُوا. So Tahawi,
but can they be held to account? So for example, yes. Sorry to interject. So if there's a ruler who, without duress, out of his own choice, decides to govern his country or his land according to other than what Allah has revealed, as in the Sharia of Islam. Right? No. I'm just saying that. Okay, so there's khuruj and there's accountability.
Absolutely, yeah.
Reminding the ruler.
Yeah.
That means a sense of duty that you have.
No. See, there's a discussion of qal' al-hakim, removing the hakim. It differs slightly from al-khuruj. Okay, we have to be.
So can qal be like a coup?
You can potentially, Allahu A'lam.
You could be raising arms.
Potentially, but at the end of the day, it comes back to al-halli wal-aqd. Sorry, it comes back to al-halli wal-aqd. But this mas'ala, at the very base of it, comes down to i'tibar al-masalih and mafasid. Because even if you say that, let me give the example. Even if you say, for example, Allah musta'an, the Dilly is dragging me to deep waters. I'm trying my best to kind of swim around it. Look, you give modern examples if you want, whatever the case may be. It comes down to masalih and mafasid. As simple as that. Even if you, of the view that it's haram to rebel against an oppressive ruler, if the mafsada is less, and you have the qudra to do so, and if doing so will bring more maslahah for Islam and the Muslims, then why would we stick to that opinion for? Why would we not go further, go back to the books and see exactly how the Salaf would treat these people if it meant that there is greater maslahah for Islam and the Muslims? But it comes down to qudra and it comes down to mafsada. It comes down to the ability, the physical ability, and not only physical, but it's also much more deeper than that.
So for our listeners, you're essentially referring to things such as have to be considered: the preservation of life, the preservation of deen, bloodshed, internal
Will the situation
strife.
worsen?
Yeah,
Yes.
will it worsen? Or will it,
It's more complex than that.
but generally, those things
Yeah.
would be factored. Or would it advance the cause of Islam in a positive way? These things
Yeah.
would have to be factored before if there's any discussion of khuruj and
Absolutely.
rebellion.
I mean, look, these are big issues, man.
I know.
And to be honest with you, Shabab, and this is something very important for the listeners, we resort back to the ulama these things. Because we have seen when people don't refer back to the ulama, we've seen bloodshed. We have seen, and we don't want this upon the Muslims. We've bled enough. We've bled enough, guys. You know, we want Islam to be prevalent, alhamdulillah. We want the Muslims to be safe. We want Islam to be victorious, inshallah ta'ala. But that will only come back by sticking with the ulama, sticking with those, having a holistic solution, guys. Yeah, I keep going on about the ulama. It's not only the ulama; it's having a holistic solution. And by all means, you know, Allah Jalla wa Ala says, "Al-'izza lillah, wal-'aqibatu lil-muttaqin." The end, the beautiful end, is for the muttaqin. So Allah Jalla wa Ala will give victory to His believers, to Islam, whether we aid in that or we don't aid in that.
And I pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we pray to live to see the return of such a time that we can contribute to it and not be mere bystanders to that. And as we bring the podcast to a pleasant close, Shaykh, I just want to say that wallahi, it was an absolute pleasure having you. You know, we've had a number of guests, and we will be having a number of guests, but we didn't listen. We listened so much.
Yeah. You always there's a tussle.
There's always a tussle.
There's always a
let me talk,
let
man.
me talk, yeah.
But you know, like I genuinely, I thoroughly enjoyed listening and just hearing your background.
It was a pleasure to be here.
And before you part from us, you know, such is the sunnah of this podcast.
No. Is it sunnah hasana or?
It's a sunnah hasana.
Hasana.
Sunnah hasana.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Well, actually, we'll see afterwards.
We'll see depending on how you react. So what we do is we offer our guests 3 options. One cannot be offered because we're fasting and it's Ramadan. So you have 2 options. It's either Islam or jizya. No. Seeing the size of those biceps, Sheikh.
Come on,
I have to.
And viewers, you can't see it. We can see through the phone.
No.
Sheikh,
so very vascular.
So one of the iconic, one of the symbolic things that we do at Blood Brothers is that we offer our male guests. Not that we actually. Oh God, I'm going to center.
Dilly's all over the place today.
An arm wrestle or a thumb war. Now,
come on.
I don't see you as someone who's a thumb war person.
No.
You know what? I'm flexing now.
So Sheikh, I politely and respectfully invite you to an arm wrestle. Do you accept?
Yeah.
Bismillah.
I'm glad it was kind of just accepted that Dilly was doing this. So
okay,
here we go.
This tape was not big enough.
No, that's fine.
Yeah.
No, that's absolutely fine. Bismillah.
What are the rules?
No, the rule is you can hold on to this. You can hold on to this.
Look at that bicep.
Are we doing? Look at the size of your biceps. It's the size of my thighs.
It's crazy.
It's the size of my thighs.
Ustad's arms are like a 16-year-old under 16 rugby player's thighs.
Okay, so we're doing best of 1, yeah?
Best of 1, yeah?
Yes.
So basically 1, yeah?
You can hold on to this.
There we go.
1, 2, fight.
Oh, there we go. Oh, it's happening. Oh, there's a 2 and 4 happening. Oh, what's happening? Oh, this is a good one. Come on, Sheikh. Oh my! It was a tough one.
Sheikh, Jazakumullah and Allah bless you.
Allahumma ameen. How often do you go to the gym?
3-4 times. Yeah. And I only do arms.
Yeah. No, all he does, he gets weights and does this.
Guys, you guys set me up for that.
No,
that was tight.
Sheikh.
That was tight.
Make sure you cut that bit,
Yeah, we'll edit it. We'll make it. We'll just leave it in the middle.
Pleasure to be here, guys.
Allah bless you. Allah bless you.
Ameen.
Listeners, thank you very much for tuning in. The next episode should be out in 7 to 10 days. Aki, anything you want to say?
It's been an absolute pleasure. Follow S.A.L.A.M closely. I'm sure Ustads are going to have some really, really good material coming out soon as well. All the other brothers involved in S.A.L.A.M. And get ready for the next episode. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Blood Brothers Podcast, a 5 Pillars of Mad Monolith production.